Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams working in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The Situational Awareness Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes. On this episode, we'll talk with Captain John Wright of the Flower Mound, Texas Fire Department. Captain Wright survived an extremely close call while operating as an interior search crew at a residential dwelling fire. As you listen, you'll hear him share some very strong lessons related to numerous situational awareness barriers. You'll hear him share how he was afflicted by a sense of urgency, how muscle memory from past training impacted his performance, how unconscious competency benefited him, how he suffered from tunnel vision, and why tunnel vision isn't anything like what he thought it would be, how he suffered from time distortion, how his hearing was impacted by auditory exclusion, how he knew what to do intuitively but ignored the warning signs, how complacency crept into his mindset, how his rational judgment became impaired under stress, how he experienced self-talk and how it almost killed him, how he resigned himself to the fact that he was going to die, and how he simply laid down on the floor to give up. And while he was laying there on the floor in that superheated environment, how he took time to say goodbye to his 3-year-old son. How while laying there, he said to himself, "All I have to do is lay here long enough to let the heat burn through my spinal cord, and soon I will be out of pain." What caused him to get up and start moving again? This is one compelling interview.
Okay, it was a regular day at the station. We had been out doing hydro maintenance or pre-plans or something, kind of, keeping busy during the day, and it was hot. It was right in the middle of a huge drought in Texas where the temperatures had gotten up well over 100 degrees every day. And this was the very beginning of that drought. So it was already hot. It was 95 degrees at night. And I remember driving to work that morning, and the wind was blowing my truck all over the highway. And I remember thinking, man, if we get a grass fire today, it's going to suck. Because the forecast was for heavy winds all day long coming out of the I think southwest. So we get to the station that morning, we get all of our stuff done. I had just been promoted to captain about a year prior to this, and we don't fight a lot of fire in Flower Mound. It's kind of a rare occasion to get a really good working fire. So I hadn't had any chances as a captain to fight any fires before this one. And about, I think it was 9 o'clock at night, tones go off for a structure fire, and we jump in the truck. And we had 3 guys on the engine that day. It was my regular driver, who's been a veteran for years, really good at his job. I had a relatively new firefighter riding backwards. He's been in the service about 7 years, and this was my first fire as a captain. So I was nervous, roaring down the road, heading towards this thing, and we knew it was a working fire because the guys from Station 3 got on the radio and said, "Hey, we're en route. We've got a header from the station." So we all knew that this was actually a working fire, and we got there, and sure enough it was. We had a 2-story house, about 4,000 square foot, 3-car garage. It was fully involved through the roof of the garage when we all got on scene. So Engine 3 gets on scene first. It was in their district. They pull a 2.5 off the back and go into the front door and wrap around to where the door that separates the house and the garage. He starts fighting fire from there. Medic 3 gets set up. They help with water supply, then I think they kind of took RIT and kind of took exposures. They were trying to keep water on the house next to this one where the flames were lapping over. We showed up right behind the truck. Truck got on scene. They're inside doing truck work, doing a search. I look down the street and I can see all these flames blowing out. And I see the trucks in front of me, so I think, all right, truck's doing search. Engine 3 is inside with a 2.5. They're probably just setting up in between the doors. I'm probably going to get the assignment to do fire attack. So I tell Gus, I said, "Gus, grab me in pike poles and give me that thermal imager. Let's get up to the command post. So we get to the command post, which is probably 100, 150 feet away from where he parked our engine. And he says, go to the second floor, do a primary search. And I said, where's the truck? Thinking, the truck does search and rescue. I'm on an engine. I'm a firefighter. I spray water and fire. It's my job. He said, they're on the first floor looking for a dog. We think the house is occupied. Well, prior to this conversation happening, somebody had come up and said, we don't know. One of the neighbors said, we don't know if they're home or not. We can hear an iPhone inside ringing, and there's cars in the garage, and there's nobody standing out front, jumping up and down saying the house is on fire. So we had a really high suspicion that the house was occupied. So he says, go second floor, do a search. I'm like, all right, I can do that. Because, we had just gotten this truck. Like we'd never had a ladder truck before. And I was on a Quint at the time, and the truck guys were all excited because they got to do truck work and, climbing ladders and cutting holes in roofs and doing all the trucky type stuff. And I was a little bit jealous. I'm like, well, I want to be a truckie too. I'm a Quint captain, so I want to do truck stuff because truckies are cool, apparently. And if you watch Rescue Me, obviously they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, right.
So I had prior to that thought about, well, I'm a Quint captain, so I'm a truckie and an engine guy. I'm the best of both worlds. And so I thought, you know what? I can do an off the hose line search. It's easy. All you got to do is run up there real quick and you get your pump can and you get your Halligan and your axe and you get to work. The only problem was all of my things that I needed to be a truckie were back on my engine, 150 feet away. I looked down the street and I thought, you know what? I ain't got time to run back to my engine to grab these tools. One, it's going to take too long. Two, the battalion chief's going to yell at me for not bringing the right tools to the command post. So I looked down the street at Engine 3, which was in between me and the house. I thought, you know what? Maybe I can grab their tools. It's like, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want their driver yelling at me for taking his stuff. Because my dad had always taught me as a kid, you don't borrow other people's tools. You use your own tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? This is a 2-story house in Flower Mound, Texas that I've been inside hundreds of times. They're all built the same. There's probably 3 bedrooms, a half bath, maybe a game room if they got that upgrade in the house. Let's just run up there real quick. We'll do a quick search, knock it out, get back downstairs, report that the search is complete, and then I can grab a fire hose because I wanted to spray water at fire. That's what I wanted to do. And off we go towards the house. And we walk past the garage, and it's ripping at this point. I can look in the front door. It's already been opened up. I can see the truck company walking back through the kitchen area. I see a couple of those guys walking across the back of the house. So I can see from the front door to the back of the house, and there's not much smoke. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be easy, dude. Ain't no smoke in here at all. Let's get up there and knock this search out. So we get to the top of the stairs, and it is floor-to-ceiling smoke, like zero visibility. And I think, this doesn't feel right. Maybe this is just nerves, or maybe I'm a little bit scared because it's my first fire as a captain or whatever. But something's not right here. And I actually turned around and walked a little bit back down the stairs. My feet were taking me out of the building. I had to stop myself and say, get your butt back upstairs and do your job. You've worked in smoky environments before. You know how to do searches blacked out. Get up there and do it. So I turned around and walked back up the stairs, and I got on the radio and asked for ventilation. Well,
hold on. Let's pause for a moment.
Okay.
This feeling. What did it feel like?
It felt like nerves or fear, kind of. It's kind of that feeling when you reach in your pocket to get your cell phone and it ain't there, and you're like, oh my God, oh, it's in my hand.
Uh-huh.
It's that initial, oh crap, kind of a rush of, I don't know what it's caused from, adrenaline or whatever, but it's just that initial, oh my gosh, type feeling. And I just dismissed it as nerves, because I was in a smoky environment with a large fire close by in a house I hadn't been into before, and I just dismissed it.
And knew in your role.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had this feeling that gave you this kind of like uneasiness or a little bit of a feeling of fear, and you just quickly dismissed it, quickly overcame it, and said, John, suck it up, buck it up, and keep moving ahead. And little did you know that after the fact, and we'll get to that discussion, that feeling, that there was a reason that you had that feeling, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your subconscious was sending you a big fat warning signal, but at the moment you didn't realize it, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. So keep telling your story, and we're gonna come back to this. And what were the clues that tipped you up, that you learned after the fact, that connected the dots? You went, oh, okay, that wasn't just nerves, and that wasn't just fear. That was my subconscious saying, John, there's a big problem here, and it was trying to just kind of slap you into that awareness. But okay, you've dismissed that now. You're going to get on and get this thing taken care of. So keep going.
Yeah, and with all due respect to the creator of the human brain, who's looking down watching me, that's a horrible design flaw. I mean, your brain knows there's something wrong, but it's like, hey, there's something wrong. You're like, oh my God, brain, what is it? Well, I'm not going to tell you. It's just a red flag of waving it back and forth, you know?
Yeah.
It would be really nice if the brain was like, hey, you shouldn't do this because of this exactly.
Yeah, I think, in our early existence, when we had those warnings, it meant, that there was a saber-toothed tiger maybe, lurking in the meadow ahead of us, and we only saw it's just a slight indicator. And I think probably early on in our existence, we weren't very good at figuring out what that clue meant, and we got a lot of our early ancestors got ate by the saber-toothed tigers. But then we learned that that feeling meant warning, and that's how you see some animals that like Malcolm Gladwell wrote in What the Dog Saw, was that they see and they sense things that trigger this instinct that allow them to have a certain reaction, whether it's bark, get aggressive, run away, or whatever. But I think as we've evolved as a human species, we have learned, better or worse, to not be on guard for danger like maybe our early ancestors were. I mean, when we leave the house, there's nothing waiting to kill us and eat us like it was for them. So we've kind of, I think, evolved into a point where it is easier for us to dismiss that and let our guard down. And, evolution, as we've become the dominant species of the planet, has allowed us to not feel as threatened or in danger in the presence of clues like that. So that's my explanation as to how we have evolved to not have these tripwires that alert us for danger and allow you to dismiss it and just keep pushing forward. So keep pushing forward.
All right. That's a lot more in depth than I had figured out. I just figured your brain was a jerk. So
it can be.
Yeah. All right. So we're top of the stairs, house full of smoke, and I wanted ventilation, but I called back on the radio and asked for a fan, thinking that we can start a fan and it can kind of pressurize this house and push the smoke back out of where it's coming from. And, I hadn't done much positive pressure training over the past couple of years. I mean, we use the fans, but we usually use them to kind of blow out popcorn smoke when someone burns popcorn in the house, that kind of stuff. So I thought, I'm going to ask for a fan, and if the incident commander thinks that's a terrible idea, surely he'll say, no, you can't have a fan because you don't know where the fire is. You're starting a fan, and you could be making it worse, whatever. So he gets on the radio and says, 10-4, we'll get you a fan. I thought, I guess that was the right decision. Well, after the fire, I asked him about that. He said, I thought you knew what you were talking about. I'm like, I thought you knew what I was talking about. So that the whole fan thing it didn't have much of a contribution to the overall outcome of the fire. It was just another example of little things adding up to be big things. So they get the fan fired up, and luckily somebody walks over there and kicks it out of the door. So we go all through a search, and we're both walking, standing up, one person in front of the other. We walk into the first room, bump into a bed, and I think for sure we're going to find somebody in this bed and be heroes, drag them out and, make a grab.
Yeah.
So the bed's empty. We kind of search on both sides of the bed. We go back out in the hallway. We both got 8-foot pipe poles with us at this point. So I'm pounding on the floor in front of me because you're supposed to sound the floor, and I hit tile with the pipe pole, and I said, Gus, there's a bathroom, go in there and search that bathroom. So it's a little bit half bath. He gets in there and just sweeps left and right real quick and comes back out. both standing still, walk into the next bedroom, which is actually kind of like a media room. It had a couch and a treadmill thing in it. And as soon as I walked into the room, I looked down the wall to my left and saw this perfect rectangle of orange on the wall. I thought, oh my God, that's an air return vent, and there's fire behind the wall. That's where all the smoke is coming from. That's why it's so hard to see. Fire has gotten from the garage to this point. And I turned around and told Gus, I said, Gus, we got fire behind the walls. We have to get out of here. And he hears me say, fire on the walls, and takes his pipe pole and throws it through the sheetrock. And flames immediately poured into that room. And I asked him after the fact, like, dude, what were you thinking, you know? And he just kind of threw his hands up. He said, I don't know. He said, you said fire on the walls, and usually when the captain says that, you open the walls up, and then you spray water at the fire. I was like, well, that would have worked, except for the fact that we didn't have no water with us. I mean, we didn't have a hose line. We didn't have
one minor detail.
Yeah, just minor. And I usually have like a water bottle in my pocket from the previous fire with 1 ounce of water left in it. I didn't even have that. I'd have paid good money for an ounce of backwash at that point to throw at that fire, because it went straight across the room, floor-to-ceiling flames everywhere. And I said, holy crap, we are going to be in so much trouble for burning this house to the ground. I said, we got to get out of here. So we spin around to leave, and I've got my hands out in front of me looking for the stair rails because I don't want to break my ankle falling down the stairs, because we're moving at this point quick. And I'm walking, and it comes up to the point where I'm looking at the same hole that we just opened up. So my mind thinks that I'm near the staircase. My eyes are telling me I haven't left the room that we were in. And what happened was we got turned around and headed off deeper into the room and circled back around and ended up right where we started. So I figured either A, I'm still in the same room, or B, I've wandered into another part of the house that has an equally sized hole in the wall with flames blowing through it. In any case, I have no idea where I'm at. I'm lost, completely lost. And I reached down and grabbed the microphone and called a Mayday. And we have an audio clip that we're going to play that has that radio traffic on it.
Command from Rit. Go ahead, truck 5048. He's coming out with a dog. Truck 504D from command, go ahead and hit it again. Engine 505A. Be advised, we're hitting the outside of the building on the garage with a ladder.
Command from Flower Mound.
Go ahead.
It's time for your first par.
Command received. Go ahead, Mayday. Can you repeat the Mayday? Receive your loss. Doing a left-hand search on the second floor. Point 5058 from command. You're on the second floor and you're lost. Is that correct?
GPS now. Alarm on this, and bring all traffic from dispatch to the scene on this channel, and I'll monitor it. Leave the other channel open for the Mayday.
501A. Digit 1, go ahead. On the second floor, they were doing a left-hand search. I need you to go in and get them. Mayday, second floor.
So that was the actual radio traffic for me calling for help. And the guys that were on scene said as soon as they heard that, the time stood still. They said that it took forever for the incident commander to acknowledge the Mayday and to get things in place. From my perspective, it was instantaneously over. It was, oh my gosh, we're lost, and holy cow, there's a lot of people at Parkland Hospital. It was just instant to me. Like, that time was completely fast for some reason.
Wow.
So, and the reason that I was able to call a Mayday at that point, because I hadn't done many things right up until this point. As a matter of fact, I had done almost everything completely wrong and set the stage for a perfect disaster. And what allowed me to recognize a Mayday situation and to call for help was the fact that we had been doing Mayday training for almost 2 solid years at my station. Because my captain went to the fire academy and got a bunch of those free CDs they hand out in that one little library. Mm-hmm. And he brings it back to the station, and we're looking at them all, and we're thumbing through them, and he comes across the Mayday CD and put that in. We watch it and listen to it. And we think, you know what, we don't have really good Mayday procedures right now. I don't even think we have an SOG on it. Let's make an SOG for calling Mayday and do some research. So we researched that for a while, and we came up with an SOG and got it approved and got it distributed to all the other captains, and all the other captains trained their guys on it. And then we went out and did hands-on training at DFW Airport in Texas, where they had the special room set up with 4 different stations where you crawl into a room and they closed the door behind you. When you came back around to leave, you realized that you were lost, and you grabbed your microphone, you called a Mayday, and they opened the door. Then you went to the next little prop where they hooked a carabiner onto the back of your air pack, and as you crawled forward, you realized you were hung up, and you called a Mayday because you were entangled, and then you worked to free yourself, and then they went on and on. I threw a piece of chain link fence over on top of you for a collapse, and then at the very end you fall into a little foam rubber pit, like you're falling through a floor. And the whole purpose of it was to recognize that you're in a parameter which requires a Mayday to be called. And that was for us, if you're lost, if you're out of air, if one of your crew members is lost, if you're involved in a collapse, or you fall through a floor, and you have to call a Mayday. It's like required. So the second I realized I was lost, that training had kicked in, because we had been doing that over and over and over. Got our whole shift trained. We got the other 2 shifts trained. We hired a bunch of guys. We took all those new guys out there and trained them. So it was repetitive training for me over and over and over for 2 solid years. And when it was hitting the fan, they say you fall back to your training, or the highest level or the lowest level of your training. I had that stored in my brain. If I'm ever lost, I call for help. So I called the Mayday, and it wasn't a perfect lunar, but it was close, and it's kind of hard to hear the radio traffic, but it was Mayday, 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 second floor, left-hand search. We got fire coming through the walls, and we're lost. And we asked me to repeat it. I just gave them second floor, left-hand search, we're lost. And as soon as I finished saying lost, I let go of the microphone, and it dropped to the ground. I was wearing a radio strap, and a lapel mic was clipped onto the radio strap. During that transmission, I had ripped it off of that leather strap and just had a death grip on the microphone. When I let go of it, it fell to the ground, and I never got back on the radio. So Gus hears me calling Mayday, and he realizes, oh my God, this was kind of cool up until this point. Now we're in a Mayday situation, because it was neat looking. The room was full of flames, and they were dancing across the ceiling, and it was kind of pretty to some degree. So Gus was just kind of taking that in, and he hears me say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Oh, my God, I should find some windows. So he feels around the room, finds a set of windows that were about 42 inches off the ground. They were 24 inches wide, and when you open them up, they were about 26 inches tall, which is what we had to get out of. And he yells over and says, Cap, I found some windows. And I run up to where he was, because at that point I was just standing there staring at this hole in the wall with the flames coming out of it. After I called the Mayday, because I didn't know what to do at that point. And my ability to reason sharply dropped off, and it never got any better. It went straight downhill at that point. Because my little nervousness that I had in the stairway got a little bit worse when I realized that we were lost, or that there's fire coming through the walls. And then once I saw the hole again the second time, I realized that we're lost and called the Mayday, my brain told me, hey, dude, remember all those Mayday transmissions that you heard when you were doing that research? And I'm like, yeah, brain. He goes, how many of those guys did they ever hear from again? None of them. None of them survived. That's the last time anybody ever heard those guys, was when they called Mayday. And so it hits me like a ton of bricks, and I'm fixing to die. And I didn't know what to do at that point. So I heard Gus say, I got windows, and I ran over where he was. I followed his voice. And he says, do you want to open the windows? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to open the windows.
Hold on a second, John. As I teach my classes, one of the things that I talk about is the rational brain and intuitive brain, left brain, right brain, and how those things function under stress. And one of the things as a finding in neuroscience is that when you're under a very high degree of stress, the rational brain doesn't function as well. It becomes less active, and therefore your ability to do critical thinking and reasoning and even be able to recall things that you know become more difficult. And even you even become consciously aware of how difficult it is, to the point where you can become frustrated with yourself that you should know how to get through whatever it is that you're dealing with. Is this kind of what happened to you there?
That's exactly what, and what really explained it best to me was there was a book by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman who talks about this, and he called it combat stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets kind of ambiguous because if you search for combat stress on Google, it'll give you a bunch of links to PTSD stuff. But there's, in one of the books that he wrote, I think it was On Killing or On Combat, one of the two, he talks about this heart rate induced hormone release that goes in. When your heart rate gets to a certain point from fear, it starts dumping hormones into your bloodstream, and you start to lose the ability to do things. And
yeah.
It was about a year after the incident when I found this stuff out, and it was an exact blueprint of everything that happened to me in that room, word for word.
Yeah, and that's exactly the things that I'm teaching in the mental management of emergency class for firefighters. I know that Lieutenant Colonel Grossman does a lot for police officers and military personnel, but it sounds like what he's writing about in that book literally parallels the message that I'm sharing with firefighters, because when it happens, I want them to have an awareness of what's happening and why it's happening. So, yeah, that's a great example of what can happen when you're under just this massive amount of stress. So, continue on to the window. So,
he throws the window open because he had opened it and shut it real quick because he realized that he was making a perfect vent hole, because the windows were directly opposite of where the hole in the wall was. So we've got wind blowing the fire from the garage to that hole, past us and out that window at this point. So it was hot before he opened that window up. It got really hot because he opened up his and I opened up mine. So we had about 4 square feet of opening for that fire to blow right through that room and out the window. And the guys on the ground that were watching said it was just, we were completely silhouetted at that point by flames. So he goes to jump out, and his air pack catches the bottom of the window, and it prevents him from getting out. And I'm watching him to see how he's getting out, and he's a lot smaller than I am. I'm a big guy, 6'2", and pushing 300 pounds on the gear on. So I'm looking at him, and he's having a hard time getting through this window. I think, you know what? If he can't get out this window, there's no way in hell I'm getting out of here. It ain't going to happen. So he takes his air pack off and sets it outside the window, and there happened to be a little roof right under the window. It was like the roof over a breakfast nook or something underneath. Mm-hmm. And so he looks out the window, sees that, puts his air pack out, climbs out the window, and turns around to where I'm at, and we're face-to-face now. And I never saw the roof, and I didn't even put 2 and 2 together that Gus was somehow magically floating in front of my face. Because at that point, the only thing I could process was I'm jumping out of this window. And I don't care how that happens. I'm going through the window. I'll deal with the ground when I get there. I want out of this room through this window. And I'm positive if you'd have walked up behind me and tried to drag me out the front door of that room, that I'd have fought you, because I was so intent on the only thing that I can do right now is go head first out this window. And he's yelling at me. Go ahead.
And you're on the second floor, and you think you're going to go out that window and fall 2 floors. Like you said, it appears as though he's floating because you don't know that there's a roof underneath of him.
Yeah, and I didn't even question why he was still there in front of me. I mean, at that point, he was kind of he was an obstacle in my way for me getting out the window, because I am jumping out of this window head first, and that's all there is to it. And he's yelling at me to take my air pack off, and I get really, really angry because, why is Gus trying to tell me to do something dangerous? Because this whole room is full of flames. There's no way I can take my air pack off. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And my brain was telling me that Gus was trying to hurt me. Take your air pack off. I'm like, oh my God, dude, Gus, that's the most uncool thing ever. So I never even make the connection of, because my air pack's hitting the window. Every time I jump into the window, I'll fall back into the room. So I get to where I can't see anything except for a small, about 2-inch circle right in front of my eyes. It was like looking through a paper towel tube. Everything was black except for just a very small circle where I would occasionally see my fists coming into that circle as I'm pounding on the windows as hard as I can, because I'm trying to break the glass to make it bigger. And the glass is shattering. I can hear it breaking. I can feel it giving underneath my hands. And I'm thinking, I'm fixing to cut myself to ribbons.
Okay, let's hold on a second. I think what you're describing there is what would be called in the neuroscience circles of tunnel vision, a narrowing of the visual field as a result of stress down to a very tiny geographic area. Is that what was happening to you there?
Exactly. And you know what? I've always used tunnel vision in the wrong way. Like we're talking about, hey, we were doing CPR on this guy in the ambulance, and somebody kicked the IV out, and we didn't notice that, and we were pumping epi all over the floor of the ambulance. We got tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. That ain't tunnel vision. I mean,
that's what people think it is, but you literally tunneled.
And I also had the auditory exclusion, which they also refer to as tunnel hearing, where it sounded like everything that people were saying, they were in another room talking through a closed door. Everything was muffled.
Yeah. When I did my research, I interviewed a guy who described that as the teacher on the Peanuts cartoon, when you're watching on TV and the teacher's going, wah, 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 wah. He said it literally, things just started getting muffled and distanced, and they were right next to him, but it was like his hearing was shutting down right in front of him.
Yeah, and that didn't help the situation as far as inside my head, because, I'm having this horrible day, terrible things are happening, now I can't see and now I can't hear. And I'm losing the ability to use my muscles. I'm getting so tired and so fatigued that I can't make my arms work. I can't make my legs work. I tried unlocking the window at one point, and I couldn't do that. Like my fingers, I was trying to tell my fingers to unlock the window. It wasn't happening. So it's getting bad. It's getting worse, and I start making the realization that I'm not getting out of this window. There's no way. I'm too big. I'm too tired. There's too much fire in here. It's too hot. It ain't gonna happen. I've already tried 3 or 4 times to make it through this hole. It's not gonna happen. And I had this loud, crystal clear voice in my head telling me to lay down over and over and over again. I kept hearing the same words: lay down, lay down, lay down. And it wasn't lay down because you're lower profile. If heat rises, you'll be safer on the ground. It was lay down and die because you've got nothing left. And I thought, you know what? You're right. I don't have anything left. This is a moot point. I need to just lay down and take it.
John, this is a compelling story. We're going to pause for just a moment and share some information with listeners who may be interested in attending a live situational awareness event, or if they can't, how to sign up for the Academy. If you're interested in attending a live event, you can check out the Situational Awareness Matters tour stop schedule at samatters.com. Click on the Program and Keynotes tab below the header, then click on the Events Schedule tab. If I'm in your area, I hope you'll consider attending a live event. If you're not able to attend a live event, consider signing up for the SA Matters Online Academy. The Academy contains videos and articles that cover the same content as the 3-day live tour event, delivered in 14 modules that you can go through at your own pace from your own computer. The Academy Plus version includes 4 books that are referenced throughout the Academy. The Plus version is a great bargain because the tuition simply covers the costs of the books, making the Academy free. Just click on the link below the header on the SA Matters homepage titled Online Academy. Okay, let's pick up the interview with John Wright again from Flower Mound Fire Department, who had a close call and survived to tell the story. Where we're at is John has just heard a voice in his head, self-speak, telling him to lay down and die. So in your head, you hear a voice telling you to lay down. And again, oh my God, this story is so full of the lessons from neuroscience, because what we have seen in many interviews with people that are having these very, very, very close calls is something happens in the head called self-speak, where they literally start hearing themselves talk to them. Of course, it's not out loud; it's through the head, and some of the strange things that they hear in the form of this self-speak. So your self-speak is saying, John, this is it. It's time to just lay down and let it go.
Yeah, my grandmother said that was the devil talking to me. You're probably right, Mamaw, because it was hard enough for him to be in there. So, and what's funny is it was the same voice that talks to me when I'm on the treadmill that tells me, "Hey, dude, half a mile is a long way. You ain't got to run more than half. Man, you can't. Don't run a mile. There's no need to." And that fat guy on the treadmill voice, he's always been right, because half a mile is a long way. I ain't got to run more than half a mile. I'm on duty, What if I catch a call? So it was that same little give up voice that I've heard before.
How'd you overcome it?
I went to lay down.
Oh, you did?
I listened to it. I mean, I was going down to my knees, and I had I said goodbye to my son in my head, which was awfully horrible. He was 3 at the time, and I thought about my wife for a second, how she wouldn't understand this. She wouldn't. I kind of thought about them telling her, and that look on her face of, I don't understand, why this happened. I tried to pray. I was going to say a prayer. I got the word Jesus out. I said it out loud, and that was all I could get out. And I was going down to my knees. And I thought, this is going to hurt. I'm going to be conscious through all this. But I remember thinking, all I've got to do is wait for it to get through my spinal cord. When it burns through the back of my neck, I'm going to be laying face down. As soon as it gets through that, then it'll be over. It'll stop. The pain will quit. And so I'm going down to my knees. And what stopped me wasn't my son or my wife or my religion or anything. It was dead firemen. And I'll have to explain that. We kind of have to go on a sidebar to explain what this is. 2002, my chief would send out emails from the U.S. Fire Administration. Every time a firefighter died, he got an automatic email, and he would forward it to the firefighter list. And we would get an email that said, John Smith died of a house fire, heart attack, whatever, fell through a roof or crashed his car on the way to the scene. It was just a short little paragraph about how they died, where they were from, their age, their career, volunteer status, that kind of stuff. So he would send these things out, and I'd look at it, delete it. And one day, I looked at one of them, and I guess I didn't have it open long enough, deleted it, and he had a read receipt set up on his email that if somebody deletes one of his emails without reading it, he gets an automatic response that says, John Wright deleted your email without reading it. And he got pissed, and he called me on the phone at the station, and I had just gotten hired in 99. And he went to chewing on me for 10 minutes about how important these emails were, and I was trying to explain to him the way Outlook works, and he wasn't hearing it. So I hung up the phone thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and start packing my stuff because I'm gone. I'm fired. That's it. And I sat there at the station the whole day waiting for him to come fire me, and thankfully he didn't. So ever since that day, anytime he sends an email out that has to do with firefighter fatalities, I saved it in a special folder. And my plan was, hey, if he ever accuses me of deleting his emails again, I'm just going to select the entire folder and forward it to him and say, no, I'm not, sir. Here's all the ones you've sent. Boom, here's 30 emails. Well, I did that. Every time I got one, I saved one, and I had over 1,000 in a little special folder. And it kind of started off as, me being a smart ass. And as I matured in the fire service, I kind of realized the importance of these emails. These guys made the ultimate sacrifice it's worth my time to read this and find out what happened to this person so I can maybe use this information to keep myself safe and not have the same thing happen. So I kind of cherished those, those automatic emails, and, thought about the guys, and if they were, close, I'd look up their department and kind of see what was going on. Well, as I'm going down to my knees, I start seeing these emails in front of my face. And I don't know if this happened in that room or my brain made it up after the fact, but I distinctly remember seeing the actual emails on a piece of paper with, 12-point Arial font. And I remember seeing all the emails of the firefighters that they found dead under a window or dead right by the front door or dead at the end of a hose line. All the times where you want to rip these guys out of the ground and ask them, what happened? You were so close to your freedom. Why did you stop at a window? Why couldn't you just lean out of the window? Have somebody just get your torso out of the window and burn your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what? I don't want to be in someone's email tomorrow morning. So I stood back up, and I went one more jump into the window. Well, at the same time that I'm having this weirdness in the room, Gus is on the roof fighting for his life, because when he went out the window, put his air pack down, his air pack slid down the roof and started pulling his mask off. And he doesn't remember this, but he said he undid his regulator, and he's sitting in front of a vent hole at this point with just his gear on and his mask on, and he's having to kind of dip his head down a little bit behind that neck flap that he had secured and kind of steal some breath out of his coat. Because he said every breath he took felt like somebody was punching him in the chest. He said it hurt so bad. Well, as I'm having my weirdness, he's on the other side of the windows, and he comes to the realization, I can't take this anymore. I've got one more breath and one more pull. If that doesn't work, I'm going through the window, and I'm going to push him out from inside the room. So as I'm jumping in the window, he's leaning in. He grabs both my air pack straps and plants his feet against the side of the house and leans back, and out I come. And I went from the most horrid, wretched, worst parts of the Bible experience of my life to the happiest, most joyous. It was just an instant switch from the gates of hell to I'm in the middle of GameStop and I've got a pass to have as many free video games as I want, plus all the ice cream and licorice I can eat. From the worst day ever to the best day ever, instantly. And I'm laying on this roof, and I remember feeling the grit from the shingles break loose as I was kind of sliding down it on my chest. And I was like, okay, I'm on shingles. How in the hell did Gus sling me to the top of this house? That doesn't make any sense, but I don't care. And I remember telling Gus, I said, Gus, don't touch me. I'm not going to move. I'm going to lay here the rest of the night. Don't touch me. And it wasn't because I was hot. It was just I didn't want to be bothered. I was going to lay down there and take a nap. And he's yelling, we got to get off the roof. And I thought, dude, you're right. It's hotter out here than it was in that room. Well, it was 7 seconds after his radio transmission where he said, we're coming off the roof. Engine 505A is coming off the roof. It was 7 seconds after that when the room flashed. So we're laying there on this roof. Seconds later, the room flashed over. And now that we weren't blocking the vent hole, it was really blowing over our heads. So I'm like, dude, it's freaking hotter out here than it was in that damn room. I'm off. I'm getting out of here. So I'm pushing backwards on the roof, trying to find the edge of the roof with my feet, thinking that I was going to drop from the tallest point of this house, because I still don't know where I'm at this point. And I couldn't see anything at all. I was completely blind at this point. I thought it was because of the smoke that was coming out. But they said there wasn't any smoke. It was just straight flames. So I'm looking for the edge of the roof. I feel somebody grabbing my pant leg and pulling me towards the left. So I follow that pull and reach over and feel roof hooks on a ladder. And I'm like, that's a 16-foot roof ladder. I'm 16 feet from the ground. That's awesome. So the guy said that he had seen the glass or heard the glass breaking, and it was Ben Jackson, who was a firefighter on the truck, and he was doing the outside vent duties where he'd gone on, shut the gas off, and went around the back and forced the back door and reclosed it. Had a ladder back there. So he was set up doing his job, and he sees all this drama coming out this window and moves the ladder over and comes up the ladder at the time that I'm pushing back. So he said that he grabbed me. He said I got on the ladder. I don't remember any of this part. He said I would go down one rung and try to jump, and then go down another rung and try to jump. He said he fought me the entire way down the ladder. he kept pushing me back on. Come on, Cap, stay on the ladder, man. Come on, Cap, seriously, come on. And he said, he's real country. He said, Cap, I'm real sorry, but you got about 3 foot from the ground. I got tired of dealing with you and let you jump. So he said, I jumped off the ladder, landed in the flower bed, rolled off the flower bed, landed on the ground. I'm on my hands and knees looking at a swimming pool in front of me. And I think, oh, dear Jesus, I'm jumping in that pool. And it wasn't because I was so hot. I was in such a good mood at that point. I was thinking, this will be the funniest prank I've ever pulled, will be for me to go jump in this pool right now and make all these guys have to jump in here and fish me out. This is going to be absolutely hilarious. And I'm crawling towards the pool laughing. So they get Gus over there, sit us both down, do a par, cancel the Mayday, and shipped us to the hospital. And I stayed in the hospital for a couple hours. They ran blood gases on us and sent us home that night. We got home about 4 o'clock in the morning that day. And I remember walking back into the house, and I had burns to my wrist, my right wrist, and there was burns across my back. And then the back of my head had a burn where the helmet strap was touching. I guess it got a little steam conversion underneath that strap or something. The burn on my right wrist, and you can see pictures of it on my website, and you can put a link up to that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
TexasMayday.com. The burns on my wrist are from Gus's hand. At one point, he reached in and grabbed my wrist, and you could see a perfect imprint of where his thumb was on the bottom of my wrist and where his fingers came across the top. It had just compressed that. It was right above where the reflective stripe was. It compressed the heat through the gear and got a second-degree burn of his handprint on my wrist, which is kind of cool. I mean, all things considered to have. I mean, scars are cool just by themselves, but I've got the handprint of the guy that saved my life on my wrist forever. And that's something that I kind of cherish. I mean, I look at it all the time, and it just kind of reminds me what brotherhood really is. So it's kind of neat. So I get home, and the whole way home from the hospital, I've had time to calm down and kind of think about what had happened. And I was worried that I was going to get made fun of because I'm the class clown of the department anyway. Everybody calls me Lumpy. I mean, that's what my clown name is. We do fire prevention for all the schools. I'm one of the fire clowns, and my clown name is Lumpy. And I was actually called Lumpy prior to that by my battalion chief, who was my driver at the time, because he said I looked like Lumpy from Leave It to Beaver. So I've always been that guy in the department that gets picked on. I don't care. I like it. I think the whole way home I'm thinking about the stories that have come out of this. Remember the time Lumpy was scared and they're screaming like a girl and Mayday, Mayday, ha, ha, ha. We had to go up there and call for help. And I'm really worried about this because that's how firemen are. We see a bruise and we poke on it. Sit there and poke and poke and poke. So whole way home, I'm thinking about, what was going to happen. So we get home, and my son is asleep on the couch. We had one of my wife's friends come over and watching while she went to the hospital and picked me up. He's laying there completely asleep, 3 years old. And I look down and I think, how awesome is it to be him right now, to not have to know, that 6 hours previously his father had written him off and had told him goodbye. I mean, he's never going to know that. He'll never understand of how terrible this night was. And I reached down and picked him up to put him back in his bed, and I felt the sting in my hand and my wrist. It hurt. Carried back into his room and kissed him on the forehead, put him in bed, and then it hit me. I got to go home and kiss my son on the forehead where I had already said goodbye to him. I don't care what anybody says about me, ever. I don't care how stupid they think I was for getting in this situation. I don't care how wimpy they think I am for calling for help. I don't give a damn. I mean, you could do the John Wright the Sissy Parade through downtown Dallas, and I will attend that parade and bring my kid because my kid likes parades, and there's usually free candy involved. So if you ever get to the point, this is for you guys listening, that you're worried about, oh my God, should I call for help? I need to punch my man card or whatever. Screw that. Dude, calling for help when you need it can be absolutely life-saving. We had 7 seconds after we cleared the windows when that room flashed. That doesn't leave a whole lot of time for him hauling around about, well, let's give it 10 seconds, or let me try to untangle myself first for 60 seconds. First of all, you ain't telling time in a true emergency. There is no time. There is no concept of time.
That's
it doesn't
right.
exist. I mean, it's either going to be super slow or super fast.
It is distorted.
There is no way that you can count to 60 or to 10. You know, I've seen things where people say, oh, when you get into a bad situation, just close your eyes and count to 5 and then deal with that. Screw that. You're wasting 5 seconds. You know, you might need those 5 seconds to figure out what's going to happen because you're fixing to lose the ability to reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this entire incident took 90 seconds from start to finish. From the time I called Mayday to the time we cleared the windows was less than 2 minutes. And that doesn't leave any time for standing around trying to figure out what to do.
What did you learn from this?
I think, and if you go back to look at any line of duty death, you can always line up all the things that happened and take away just one of them, and that stops the death from happening or the injury.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you lined up everything we did wrong on that incident, if I would have known where I was when Gus opened that wall up, there wouldn't be a podcast right now. If I'd have known where I was, if I would have had the situational awareness or just the mental image of I am standing exactly in this spot, this is my exit, and it wouldn't have been a problem. We probably would have gotten written up for burning the house down at that point. You know, because we would have made it out. But because I was following Gus into the room, and we're both standing at this point, walking around in an atmosphere where we can't see our feet, we had no idea where we're at. And that was the biggest problem was we needed to leave and we couldn't because we didn't know the way out.
At the time when you didn't know where you were, I mean, you know, when the fire broke through the wall and then you're like, well, you thought you knew where you were. I guess the question is, you didn't realize that you didn't know where you were, right? You thought you had a pretty good orientation as to where you were in the room?
Yeah. I mean, I was fully expecting to run into the stair rails because I had my hands out in front of me looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it was just complete disorientation, and I hadn't set that up prior to because I hadn't trained for this day to happen. I never thought this was going to happen in Flower Mound, Texas. I mean, this kind of crap happens in New York and in Phoenix. You know, these kind of, you don't call Maydays in Flower Mound. That only happens in big cities. So why prepare for it? You know,
but you guys had done some preparation in the form of Mayday drills, and you think that helped you?
That helped me call it. That helped me get help coming. But I had practiced calling for help. I hadn't practiced helping myself.
Mm.
You know, getting out. I mean, we had done RIT training prior to the Mayday training where we hit a dummy in a warehouse somewhere, and we had to crawl through a bunch of pallets and traffic cones and stuff to find this dummy and drag him out. It took like 9 crews on average to get this dude out of the building. And that's something else that led to my despair was knowing that RIT operations, a 2-man RIT team is useless. I mean, you can't do anything with 2 guys on a RIT team. I mean, the guys that were on RIT that came up to come look for us made it to the top of the stairs. He picked his imager up, looked in the room, and the screen on the imager was solid white because that imager didn't resolve temperatures above 1,000 degrees. And he said, God, I hope they're not in there. And he turned around to his firefighter and said, I'm going in there, stay right here. When he heard Gus say on the radio, he's coming off the roof. And when he heard that, he said, screw that, I ain't going in there now, so we're leaving. So they bailed out and went out the front door. So I'm really fortunate that the RIT team coming to look for me hadn't done what RIT teams normally do. And when you get assigned RIT, you stand on the sidewalk and pout because you get, I got put in RIT again,
Yeah, I'm not going to have any fun.
Yeah. You sit there watching everybody at work. Well, you want me to hand out water bottles and we take some blood pressures, and why don't you go ahead and make me medical? That's what I always did when I got signed to RIT. It was bull crap. I'm a fireman. I ain't no RIT man.
Right.
I want to go play. Well, the captain who got assigned to RIT, man, he did a 360. He made a face-to-face with the incident commander and the truck company, and he knew what was going on. And he ran right to where we were at. And we ended up jumping out the windows, but, man, he was 5 feet from us at that point.
How many were on the RIT team for that event?
2.
2. All right.
Yeah, 2 in, 2 out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some of the other things that, you know, when I'm teaching this class, I have a whole session or segment of lessons learned, and I, you know, you might have heard me say I had a camera with me. That really would have benefited me at one point to pick that thing up, turn on, look at it, but I didn't know I had it, and I kind of attribute it to muscle memory, and here's kind of the explanation for that. We got back from a commercial fire alarm, and the new rookie riding backwards asked me when we got back to the station, she said, "How do you get undressed so fast?" I'm like, "First of all, why are you watching me undress? And second of all, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I was still wearing all my bunker gear, and you're back in your station boots already." And I was like, "I don't know how I get out of my gear so fast. I guess practice. I don't know. I don't practice it." Well, I've taken my bunker gear off, you know, thousands of times over the years, and I've developed an unconscious, you know, I've unconsciously become competent at removing my gear proficiently because, you know, I'm a fat guy, and I don't like to sweat. So I get out of that stuff as quick as I can. So I had to put all of my gear back on because I couldn't explain how I did it. I said, I'll put it back on, watch how I do it, and then just learn that way. So I put all my gear back on, took it off, and when I stopped to think about how I was doing it, it kind of tripped me up a little bit. And I said, "Screw it, I'm just going to take it off, and you just got to watch because I can't explain it." Well, that's part of my muscle memory that I developed unconsciously just from doing something the same way over and over again. Well, every time that we go to a call, like a commercial fire alarm, we go to a lot of those, we take that thermal imager with us because that's part of the required stuff that you carry in the building. Well, 99% of the commercial fire alarms we go to are false. So I never need to use that camera, but there it swings on my air pack strap. I got it clipped to my air pack strap, and it just swings back and forth as I walk. All right, every time we train, we do search and rescue training. "Hey, can we use the cameras?" "No, put some wax paper in your mask. We're doing blacked out training." "Okay." Go to live fire. "Hey, can we use the cameras?" "No, you're going to melt them. Leave them in the trucks." "Okay." So the only time we ever mess with these cameras is when we're checking the trucks out in the morning or a station tour comes through. "Hey, look at this camera. Look, and turn it on. You can see your handprint on the wall, and here's your feet prints, and you know, isn't that neat?" So we get to the point where I need a thermal imager. I've got it with me, but I don't even know it's there because it's just something that swings on my air pack strap.
Great.
And I never use it. So to fix that now, what I've tried to do over the past couple of years is I still take it to all the commercial fire alarms, that kind of stuff, but I'll reach down and pick it up and turn it on when I walk in the front door, just to get in the habit of reaching down and grabbing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also our Mayday policy says that after you transmit a Mayday, activate your pass device, and we wear Scott air packs. So I called the Mayday, and I reached over and I double-clicked the side button on the shoulder strap to turn my pass device on. It didn't go off. I was like, "What the crap? What's wrong with this thing?" So I double-clicked it again. I said, "What the hell? It's supposed to go off. Why is my pass device not working?" And I'm double-clicking the crap out of this yellow button on the Scott air pack. I'm resetting the pass device.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do 99.9% of the time. I do it every morning when I check the air pack off, and every time I turn the air bottle on, I reach up and double-click that yellow button.
Yeah.
And I push the red button, which turns the pass device on once a year during Mayday training. So muscle memory. It had gotten me on two different occasions during that call where I was doing things that I didn't know I was doing.
Isn't it amazing how some people say, well, logically, you'll know what to do. I mean, you'll know when you're in that moment that you're supposed to push the red button and not the yellow button twice. You know, that's common sense. Common sense. Is it, John?
Sorry, don't happen.
Well, John had a lot more to share with us, but we are out of time. We're at our 1 hour limit that I like to keep the show to. If you've experienced or witnessed a near miss and would like to be interviewed on this show, please visit my companion site, closecallsurvivor.com, and click on the Contact Us link. Thank you in advance for sharing your lessons learned so that others may live. And thank you, John Wright, from the Flower Mound Fire Department, for sharing your very compelling story of your near miss. I've had the opportunity to interview hundreds of people who have had firsthand experiences with near miss events, From these interviews, I've extracted many of the lessons learned that I now share in the articles on the SA Matters website, in my books, and in my videos, in the Get in the Loop live tour events, and in the online academy, and of course, on this podcast radio show. Well, that's it. Episode 9 is complete. Thank you for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I sincerely appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. If you like the show, please go to iTunes and search for SA Matters Radio and subscribe to the podcast and leave your feedback and a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. You can also sign up for the free SA Matters monthly newsletter by visiting the SAMatters.com site and clicking on the red box on the right side of the homepage. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit SAMatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.